Hi friends, I'm Tammy Kay. Welcome back. And for another video, today we're going to be painting these loose geraniums. And so while we're painting and figuring out our layerings, we're also going to talk about the idea of flow state. And what that is where when you are being creative, you kind of go to another place in your brain where you're not thinking really much about what you're doing, thinking really much. Good English, Tammy. But you are just in the process of creating because you know the rules, you know how to make something. So today I'm talking about my 4 tips on how to get into flow state more often. And it's a wonderful space to be because then you're not thinking about the bad stuff in your head. It gives you a relaxing break just to enjoy creating and a little bit of reprieve from the negativity. So let's get to it. All right, friends, so today we're painting together and we're getting our palette ready. I've got my medium watercolor paper. This is professional. I've got my Winsor & Newton professional paints, and I've got my Winsor & Newton student grade Cotman brushes in a 12, 8, and 2. I may not be using them all, but I always like to have them available. And then this is the reference we're using today, just kind of going off of that. So when we're creating loose florals, we're painting the idea of things, but we're not, necessarily, we're not going for realism. We're not copying everything just exactly, but just playing around. So I'm going to grab some pink here in my puddle that we have already out. And I'm going to add some orange to this. What I want is a really watery mix. We're going to start really light. And there's already a lot of water. So I'm going to start with a little bloom right here. And essentially what we're doing is we're just starting to kind of create those little flower shapes. And this is a ball of flowers, and it's going to have a center. So we're going to emulate that as well. But some of these are just like kind of side-facing pieces. And, some of these can be bigger. If you want to make them bigger than they are, just spread out the blooms, just like that. And today we are talking about how to get into flow state. So flow state is essentially this unawareness of time, of where you're doing something that you know how to do. So it could be art in one form or another. It could be cooking a meal. You've learned the rules, and now you're just doing that activity intuitively, creatively, enjoying the process. And so you kind of, you lose track of time, you lose track if you need to go to the bathroom or if you're in pain or you're cold, and your brain is just like, you're kind of like floating around. Not literally, but you're just in the moment. And so if you're listening to a tutorial, you're not going to be in flow state, right? Because you're hearing what I'm saying on what to do. We'll just leave it about this size, little clump of flowers here. But when you start to creatively do things by yourself, because you know what to do, that's the place, and I'm going to grab some yellow. That's the place in which you're going to start to notice this flow state, which is a beautiful space. I'm going to make these a little bit bigger. So you can see I'm just kind of doing the little rough shape of these flowers. It's going to be, you're going to see a little bit of the stem for this one. And they have sort of a round shape, but they also have like little pieces sticking out. So, just a really fun flower. And we can do some centers later also to emulate the flower more. So, once you can get into flow state, it's easier to know how to do it. My first tip on how to get to flow state is just to do something that you know, right? So we're doing a little stem here. So if you're used to, we're going to do some little green buds that poke out all around the bottom of the flower. And we'll do some buds over here too. So if you know how to paint a geranium, you can do that on your own and just enjoy that process and get lost in time. If you've never painted one, just think of it as a practice. Maybe you're doing a tutorial and it's the first time for you, and that's totally okay. But if you know how to paint something else, let's do some buds right here that just kind of poking out. If you know how to do something you've learned already, you can get to that flow state. And flow state is nice because you stop thinking about your problems and your worries and you just create something. Let's take some more of that kind of peachy paint. And I'm going to add a little orange to that. Just a little difference in color. And now we'll do another little clump right down here. Get that hair out of the way. We don't need that. And then we'll do the same type of thing. Remember, it is that first layer. So we are just kind of, it's less pressure, I should say. Not that you should ever feel pressure, but we do. And it's okay to admit that the pressure comes from different places, often our own narrative, but also often things people have told us. So we're just going to ignore that narrative and we're going to just play. Just play and just have fun. There's a little bit of a clump here. My second recommendation for getting into flow state is to listen to music. And that can help you just kind of relax on all areas. When you listen to music, it takes up the capacity of your brain. Like your whole brain is involved in processing the sounds, if it's lyrical, in processing the words, the rhythm, and the volume, and so many different aspects. And so it's really a wonderful, complete process. Let me just start doing the leaves here. I'm grabbing some green. And I do want to add in leaves in between all of this here. And I did have this stem sticking up here, but I'm not going to do stems for those. At least I don't think I will. So I kind of just do this little, it's very round leaf, little tapping motion to create a little bit of a beveled edge. Does that make sense? So we'll just do some more of those really frilly leaves. I love these. So yes, listening to music can help you get out of your head. We'll do some little buds here too, sticking out from underneath somewhere. Get out of your head and into just kind of being in the moment, which is really helpful. And it helps to block out the negative narratives that you might be having. We're going to take off some paint, dab our brush, and just do some lighter ones too, kind of in between or behind. So think about what your favorite playlist is. What do you really love to listen to? And play that music. Put on your earbuds, block out the world for just a few moments. Let's do some lighter green. Yellow, green, green, gold. And we'll do some over here too. You can even mix some greens together. So lots of greenery, lots of beautiful leaves coming together. It's kind of surrounding the blooms. And we'll do some lighter. Just take off some paint, dab your brush, and add in just some layerings of these leaves. As we're doing this, I'm going to add some splatter. So I'm just going to take some light green, splatter around, and that can just be part of the composition as we add in more leaves if we want to. So something I find really helpful getting into flow state is to set up a quiet time where you've got some space to yourself. Let's grab some blue too, a little greenish blue. I want to change up the values of my leaves. So we've got some interesting things going on here. But yes, finding a quiet space is so important because then you're not going to have the distractions. You're not going to have people coming and talking to you, needing something from you. And where you have a space where you can feel calm, relaxed, excited to paint. And if you're not a painter and you're listening to this, this can apply to all creative activities. So whether you're cooking or gardening or wood carving or taking photos, photography is another wonderful way to get into flow and to get into being creative. Really, it's up to you on what you're going to decide to do, what you choose to do. And it can be so rejuvenating for your brain to have these quiet moments. We don't spend a lot of time in quiet these days. We just kind of keep moving, keep going, and it's detrimental to our health. So looking for spaces. I'm just going to add in wet on wet, a little bit of dimension in these leaves. Finding a space, quiet space that's all to yourself. And just seeing where your creative brain is going to take you. Because when you are in flow, you are creating from the right side of your brain, which is the creative side. And it's amazing. It's a beautiful space to be in. Alrighty, so we've got a lot of leaves here. This is starting to dry a little bit, but I'm going to hit it up with a heat gun and we'll get back to it to put in a little bit more of layering. All right, so I'm still gonna keep with my number 8 round brush. And now for doing our layering, we're gonna go with a more saturated color than we had before. So I'm going to take, let's see, I kind of had some yellow happening. I've got some green on my brush. Clean your brush first, or not. You can still kind of mix things together and it's gonna be okay. We have quite the puddle happening here, and that's okay. It's all about embracing the experience. So more yellow. Now this is where we're starting to get bright and lovely. So we've got that background, and I'm just going to create some actual petal shapes here for this flower. You can see just painting over the top of that is definitely okay to do so that we can get some definition in these florals, and then maybe just, you know, some little petal shapes. So that first one, like I said, doesn't really matter. That first layer, you're blocking out color and, you know, you're figuring out placement, which is really important. But this is where you come in and define things. Okay, so a little bit over the top. I am not covering everything up. And then we'll do some little centers as well later. So for this one, we're going to grab, so I've got a puddle flowing. If you have that happening for you, you can just take a paper towel and dab, you know, what is this called? Dabbing? Dab it up and you're good to go. You don't want your water to get all crazy, out of control, but it's okay if it does. It'll dry. You can use it again. So I've got a nice bright pink here. It's got a mixture of other things, some red and some loveliness. All right, so I'm going to do that same thing, a little bit more runny paint. And we're going to do just some nice flowers over the top. And they tend to have pretty round petals. So when I'm doing loose, I kind of get lost in what I'm doing. Kind of like that flow state. If I'm not talking to you, I'm getting lost, which is a beautiful thing. So if you feel like you're getting lost in this process, that's wonderful. Embrace it. You can always mute me if I'm being annoying and just continue this painting on your own. Or maybe you're here because you do want the direction, and that's great too. So there we are. Starting to see those layers coming through and creating the look that we're wanting here. A little bit of dabbing. I don't cover up that bottom layer fully, right? I'm just going to have both of those there. We've got some nice dimension. I love that. So now I've got my orange here, making that peachy color with some of the reds or the pinks. Just mixing those together. A little more of that until you get what you want. And you can, you know, you can do variations of colors. So it doesn't have to be just one if you'd like. So I hope you guys are kind of thinking about what you can do to practice flow. It's an enjoyable experience, and I believe it is good for your brain because it offers that reprieve that you probably don't get. We're always so busy. We're go, 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 and we're left brain people. Like the tasks that we have to do that require listening to someone, you know, we're in our left brain analyzing and thinking and being logical, but we need time to do flow state activities too. Okay, for these right here, what I'd like to do is define some of them more. So grabbing more concentrated paint, and see how I just blob that on like this, because then I can create that leaf shape that's just a little bumpy. And I'm also defining it because I feel like some of these leaves have really kind of flown into each other and we're not seeing a lot of, you know, distinction. So I'm just going to make some like that. And some of these I'm going to mix the greens, excuse me. And some of these we're going to put some line details in. So my whole thing is I want to have contrast. And we've got some buds here. So I'm going to just define those. These are buds, it kind of looks like a leaf. So just a little bit extra dark saturated color here. All right, and then I'm going to define my stem a little bit more. Now I'm going to take my number 2 round, very skinny brush. We're going to do some line details. So if you're like me, often when I first do that first layer, I get a little bit nervous, like what's going to happen. And we are doing leaves that right in the middle here, the line is coming out from there, the lines like that. So you can do that as well. When I first do that first layer, I'm often like, oh no, does this look right? Is this going to be okay? And then once I get my layering in, I'm like, okay, this worked out. It doesn't always work out, I'll be honest. Sometimes I paint stuff and I'm just like, ooh, for the trash. And then I'm like, it's okay. It can be for the trash. Less stress if you think about it that way. Don't worry so much. It's just a painting. You can always try again. This one is not the first version this morning. The first one I was like, this is starting to look like a marigold or hydrangea. I'm going to have to start over. And I did. That's okay. There's no harm and shame in that. A little bit of darkness here. We like to do a variety of colors and, also shades, but then also the lightness and darkness, the value changes to get some interesting things happening. Okay. Really light paint I'm grabbing just to put in a little bit in the background. So if you want something to recede and just be kind of, in there, but not really a show stopper or, so bright, you can just do a really light version and it's going to recede in the background, but you will still obviously have it there as just a very, very light detail. I have dried this. I should probably mention that. And often you can see the middle of these flowers. So I'm actually going to put in a little green middle for these, for some of them. And that's going to define our little geraniums a bit more. A lot of these are side facing, so you're not going to see the middle. And if you're not sure, you can just put a middle in anyway, and it'll look like it is a forward facing flower. Just saying. There we go. I love the leaves that these flowers have. They absolutely make me happy. Guys, but a few months ago, I did a podcast on flow state versus mindfulness. If you want to hit that up, I will have that linked in the description. And you can take a listen as well. So with your geranium, if you feel like you are done, I'm going to add in a little bit of this reddish splatter. Then you can be done, or you can add in more leaves, whatever floats your boat, guys. And if you do want to add in a little bit more concentrated paint in some of these, you can, like just a little bit of a value shift or a change. And I'd say that's probably the last thing that I will do. Just a little bit, dabbing the paint just to have another color in there. A little bit of interest and some Scarlet Lake will add you to this one. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it, painting this with me. This is really a fun little project, pretty simple, and hopefully it helps you to learn as well how to practice flow state for the first time. And if you've been practicing for a while, hopefully it encourages you to get into that process more often. So we've painted these geraniums here today. I really hope you enjoyed the process, and I hope that you can start practicing flow state a little bit more in your life. It's where you're using the creative right side of your brain. We don't use it as much as we need to. I think it's very important to be creative and to get ourselves out of that funk, to be able to boost our mood or lower our anxiety if that's what's happening. I want to remind you guys of all the freebies I have linked below in the description, so check those out. My Italy trip, my art retreat is coming up in October, so snag a spot. I still have a few spots left. And I'm also on Patreon. $3 a month is the lowest where it starts, and up from there depending on what exclusive content you were looking for. It's also a way to support me as an artist. So thank you for listening. Happy painting, happy mental health. I'll see you guys soon on the next tutorial.